that's everything. Maybe. Who can say? Who can say where the road goes? Where the road goes? I don't know. So I'll just end your torment right then and there. Not really. Alright. I suppose it's time then. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. You've joined me in my apartment, it seems, for Halloween. I don't got much in the way of decorations, though, I'm sorry. I don't really have much in the way of Halloween decorations, so we're just gonna have to go with this, yeah? Just the huge. I look kinda Halloweenish as it is, I suppose. My robotiness. My robo persuasion. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a bit goofy. I took a nap and I woke up a bit late. It doesn't look like much back there, but that couch, comfy. Yeah, so I thought it would be fun for Halloween to give you another twofer of bad creepypasta. A little bit extra for the week, I would say. I don't know how loud the music is, but we're gonna turn you down a little bit. There we go. Sometimes I'm a little bit drowned out by my own background music, and I don't want to do that today. At least not for my creepypasta reading. You guys should be able to hear me, I suppose. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let me get spooky. There we go. I know this is usually only reserved for when I'm concentrating, but it can also be kind of creepy as I stare directly into your soul. But for right now, we're just going to read the bad creepypasta. And then I suppose that'll be what it is. That wasn't clunky to say at all. Jeepers creepers. Alright. So then, let me just scooch on over just a bit. Get cozy. Get a little bit cozy. Because originally I was gonna try playing a backtracking of This Is Halloween, but I couldn't really find one that would work well. So I'm not gonna do that. Nah, I ain't gonna do that. So then, I'm gonna put this where I can actually see it. And I'm gonna move it for you guys. So that as we're going, you can kind of follow along with what nonsensory that I found. Is that good? I don't know. I'll figure out. I guess I'll find out later when I actually. I'm gonna just break everything, you know? Break all the things. I don't really know why, but for some reason it was also just not. It's kind of an ugly window. Oh, wait. I have to remember not to actually close the window. Because if I do, then It'll just straight up delete what we're doing here. Okay. So the twofer that I got for you. In the spirit of the twofers that I've done for the month of October, this spoopy poopy twofer is gonna be 2 lost episodes. Like how the first 2 were Sonic related and the other 2 were like tangentially gaming related, I suppose. I don't even know my own show anymore. What am I talking about? Anyway, these 2 are gonna be lost episode related. And believe me when I say these are trash too. Alright. So then, without further ado, and I should also preface, I've already read one of them. The lost episode of Wheel of Fortune. That one is funny to the point of being stupid. I mean, really stupid. But the Beatles cartoon lost episode is a new one. I've never read this one, so we're going to be diving into it blind. If I have to laugh at some point, please forgive me. I'm already laughing. What the heck? All right. Well then, shall we? The Beatles cartoon lost episode. I just want to tell you that I love the Beatles. They have great music and great talent. I have their albums, t-shirts, and items. I even enjoyed the old cartoon of the Beatles that was made in the 60s. But it wasn't long until I found out there was a morbid secret to the cartoon. I was oh my goodness. I was at a collector's shop when they had a section about the Beatles. I was looking for some Beatle mugs and pins. I bought 2 Beatle mugs and 4 Beatle pins. And just as I was about to leave the Beatles section, something caught my eye. It was a videotape called, quote, The Beatles Cartoon, The Lost Episode, end quote. I really wanted to get it, so I told my mom that I want to buy it. And then when I went to tell the counter worker that I would like to buy the tape, he said I couldn't have it. He told me that he watched it and had nightmares. I was surprised that he said that about the tape because it was the Beatles. How can a cartoon about a band be scary? But he said, never mind, you're just going to have nightmares anyway. And gave me the tape. And while I was walking away, I saw him folding his hands like he's praying. I was starting to feel like there is something wrong with the tape. When I got home, I immediately went downstairs to watch this mysterious video. When the video went on, something weird happened in the beginning. It was the sounds of screams of someone in agony. I was scared until the opening title was on. It was like usual. The episode was called Because, and I thought it had to do with the Abbey Road song Because. Okay. Yeah, sure. Then the cartoon played and something was wrong. It was totally different than the original style. It looked similar to the original, but it looked darker. Oh, here we go. Then the episode showed all 4 Beatles in their original design: John, Paul, George, and Ringo. They had voice actors that sounded like Paul Frees and Lance Percival. They were talking about some kind of a CD they found outside the recording studio and talking about listening to it. Parenthesis, this was strange, as CDs weren't invented until 1976 and the show was produced in the late 60s, end parenthesis. So then the scene showed John putting the headphones on until it happened. John all of a sudden just looked like he just blacked out. Then Paul said, "John, are you alright?" Then the screen zoomed up to John, who had started drooling. And all of a sudden, John's eyes turned into an LSD acid trip image with weird colors. After 10 seconds of John's acid tripping face, something appeared. Okay. So he started listening to a CD and started tripping balls. Okay. Fair enough. I grabbed the clicker and went backwards to see what it was. What I saw was morbid. What I saw was a morbid, grotesque picture. It was a picture of a man with a ventriloquist dummy. The scary part of the picture was the man with the... My goodness. The scary part of the picture was that the man with the dummy had no mouth. Instead, there was blood on his face where his mouth is supposed to be. The dummy had fire in his eyes and an insane smile. Ooh. I had to choke back some vomit after watching it. Okay, you know what? Credit. So far, no hyper-realistic... Well, there's blood, but it doesn't say hyper-realistic blood, so there's some credit where credit's due, I suppose. And... Okay, that's a new one. I've never seen a story that straight up made its MC barf while they were watching it. You know what? Credit. Props. So far. I had to choke back some vomit after watching it. Then the screen went back to John's face. "Are you alright?" asked Ringo. "Seeing is not believing. Seeing is killing." John soon got back to consciousness and said, Yes, I am. What is it? What time is it, George?" "It's 1:13, said George. Then the screen went black and blood started... Okay. You know how I said I would give this story props and credit? Yeah, I take that back. Here we go. Here it is. The screen went black and blood started to rain down. But this blood was hyper-realistic. It looked so real that if I touched the screen, I would get blood on my fingers. The blood rain soon disappeared and soon showed the Beatles walking to a lake. A crowd of girls soon started chasing the guys for 30 seconds when all of a sudden a picture with a girl with no eyes, just her eye sockets dripping with blood. She had no teeth, and more blood was pouring out of the mouth. It was another picture of a Zolgo victim that was popular on Creepypasta. Crime and Netley's, that's a reference. Good lord. Oh, that caught me off guard. What the heck? Zolgo. Alright. Fair enough. Well, you know what? If I start spewing weird like Zolgo got me. That oh no. I'm sorry, I have to be a little bit more quiet than normal because I don't want to be an inconsiderate housemate. And my other housemates are upstairs trying to sleep for work, so I'm trying to contain the level of noise I make. But holy Jesus. I got jump scared by Hitler. Alright, fair enough. Oh my god. Okay. Where was I? I paused and looked closely at the vomit, and there was the face of Hitler. I was shocked that a man who killed millions of people and soldiers was in a cartoon about the Beatles. Just forget about, said John. But what about our fans? I don't give a beep. I love that. I love that they talk about barfing blood and Hitler, but they don't say the 4-letter F word. I was shocked that this episode involves John saying the F word. But I decided to continued on. That was grammar. The next scene showed a building that was about to be demolished. The Beatles were walking down a hallway when the wrecking ball hit the building. A piece of rubble went flying in the air. It was about to miss a person when John did the unthinkable. ... He pushed the man back to where the piece of rubble was about to fall. In a second, the piece of solid marble crushed the guy to death. Realistic blood and brain matter went everywhere. The blood and brain matter looked like it was real. Oh! A crowd of people surrounded the scene, where the camera zooms up to John with an evil smirk on his face. The next scene only showed... Wait. The next scene only showed just a black screen. The only thing I heard was a gunshot. Then there was smoke that seemed to represent the fired gun. Then the screen showed the recording studio where the Beatles recorded their music. There were no lights on, but I did hear mumbling, and I listened closely to hear someone saying, "I shouldn't have done that. They're going to know soon." Then one light went on. There was a shadow outside the door. It was the form of John. It wasn't long until the light was reflecting to the sound manager in the recording booth. ... Did. Can I just say something before I continue? I love how he does more than 3 dots. Anyway, I quickly figured out he was shot by a shotgun. The camera zoomed up to the ground outside the room. In a quick shock, a model M1887 fell to the ground with blood on it and a bit of smoke coming out of the barrel. Okay. That's oddly specific, but sure. The next scene showed Paul and George and Ringo knocking on John's room door. Then Ringo, for some reason, busted down the door, and there was a humongous safe that was the size of an SUV. They didn't know what the combination was, but for some reason, it wasn't locked up all the way. They opened it up, and they found out John's secret. ... He was a Satanist. They probably could have told you that from the fact that he barfed up Hitler, but you know. Sure. Sure story. Is he also friends with Ebony? Oh my god, he must be friends with Ebony. They're both in Britain. Conspiracy theory time. Not really. There was a body of a dead woman on a pentagram with blood in her eyes gorged out. I'm not making my immortal jokes. I'm not making my immortal jokes. I'm making my immortal jokes. I'm sorry, I need a minute. Oh boy. Oh boy, that came out of nowhere. I wasn't even expecting that. Okay. There were dead animals. Jesus Christ. Okay. There's no humor here. Only terrible, terrible creepypasta. There were dead animals, a fan-made Necronomicon, and a goat's skull on a pentagram. In fear, George fell to the ground. Paul had to choke back vomit. What is it with this guy and vomit? And Ringo, in a sad way, started crying. The crying from Ringo didn't sound like normal cartoon crying. It sounded as real as day. And in a shock, I found out that the dead woman was Ringo's fiancée, Jenny. I didn't know that Ringo had a fiancée, but I was scared that Ringo's crying started to get mixed with the screams of a girl. I started to suspect that's what's supposed to be the screams of Jenny. The screen went black. Then the screen showed the view of the sun setting from John's legs. Okay. The screen went immediately to John's face. Had a mad expression and a rapid moving mouth. He had red in his iris and he had a noose around his neck. He was about to commit suicide. He shut his eyes and jumped. The camera showed John's feet still swinging. The camera zoomed out to show John's lifeless body on the small cliff on the lake that the Beatles were going to in the beginning of the episode. The screen went black, and Paul appeared in a sad expression. And the screen went black again, and then the scary part begins. Without warning, Paul's face appeared with hyper-realistic eyes. Dun, dun, dun. This is getting comical. Like, how many... What? Why is he, like, cataloging everything so perfectly like this? Okay. There was so many camera views of Paul's face, like a zoom out of him in the corner. Then pictures appeared. I remember seeing a picture of a hand with a gun in it, and the gun was pointed to a little boy's head, but the gun was already fired. Another was on a river with a garfish in it, and right behind the fish was a body of a couple in a bloody mess. Okay, excuse me for being stupid, but I need to actually look something up. Did he mean Garfield or Garfish? Is Garfish a real thing? Oh, they are real. Okay, so it's like a pointy, like needle-nose plier fish. Wait, so this tiny... So this tiny, like, needly fish is just in the front. And then friggin'... Okay. Fair enough. The next picture was a burnt town. People were on the ground dead. Quickly, I discovered that the town was destroyed during an attack. It was destroyed because of the Vietnam War. Oh God, here we go. The next picture was 3 undertakers with 7 coffins with little children no younger than 6. Well, that's disturbing. Sorry, my cat was doing something. And behind the left undertaker was a coffin with a hand coming out of it, and the hand was moving. Wait, wasn't this supposed to be a picture? Okay, fair enough. After more pictures, it shows Paul with the same expression that he had before the scary slideshow. Then a voice appeared of a low, low, quiet voice saying, "Do it." Sorry, I had to do the Emperor Palpatine thing. Is this going to take a Squidward suicide thing where he shoots himself in the head? Then an M1911 Colt pistol. Why is he so specific with the firearms? What the heck? Okay. Then a M1911 Colt pistol appeared in Paul's hand. He puts it in his mouth and pulls the trigger. Realistic blood and brain matter went everywhere. Yep, this is like Squidward suicide. What the heck? Why? Why? Bro. Okay, fine. I'm already committed to this. Let's see. Yep. Then the camera zoomed up to the capsule of the bullet that shot Paul, and the capsule said, "Your life was already over, Paul." The next scene showed George on a cliff from the same lake where John committed suicide. He was about to commit suicide too. I thought he was going to jump off the cliff, but instead he pulled out a... Okay. At the end of the scene, the camera zoomed to the gun, and the gun was the same gun Paul used to commit suicide. How many times can you say gun in one sentence? And the gun... and the gun said it takes 2 bullets to kill 2 beetles. Wait, what? That's edgy. Okay. It scared me a little bit. It sent chills down my spine. The next scene showed Ringo in the hospital, dying of an unknown disease. He took the picture of him and his fiancée and the engagement ring he gave her. And then he died. So all these other characters get such really graphic deaths, and then all of a sudden Ringo just kind of dies of emotional damage. Okay, fair enough. The next scene should... Wait, I already read that. At the end of the episode, it appears to be in a dark hall. All I hear was screams, whistles, yelling, and gunshots. I soon found out the hall was in a prison. Did you see it? The scary part was that every time the lamp swings in the hall, a black hooded figure appeared. It wasn't long until I found out it was John with gray skin and red iris. He said, "I hope you enjoyed your life, because my life is over, including my friends. All because of me. ... John." And right behind him was a crowd of guards and prisoners. It seems that some of them had bullet holes in their head and blood all over their bodies. And the weird part was that the prisoner that was right next to John was Mark David Chapman. Wow, okay. Okay. Sure. It scared me how the guy who killed Lennon was right behind the evil, demoniac cartoon John Lennon. Sorry, my cat's really being a button. What are you doing, dude? You gonna come join me, or are you just gonna keep trying to claw at my leg? Come on. Come on up. You're not going to? Okay. Well, stay down there then. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Jeez. Okay, yep, she jumped up here now. So now Mitz is joining the chat. Here she is. Hey, baby. Hey, baby girl. Say something to the mic. There's bad creepypasta happening here. No? Okay. Well, you just sit there. I'm gonna keep reading. But do know that my little Catsy is hanging out here now. was I? It scared me how the guy who killed Lennon was right behind the evil demoniac cartoon John Lennon. Don't hit the mic with your tail. Stop that. Hold on. Butt away from my mic. I'm sorry, y'all. Mitz is being a brat right now. What the heck? Don't swat my hand. Girl. Okay, sorry about that. My cat was... Even my cat thinks this story's garbage and she wants me to stop. But I will not. Alright. Where was I? Okay. It scared me how the guy who killed Lennon was right behind the evil demoniac cartoon John Lennon. For 30 seconds, oh god, he has a stopwatch too. Evil John and the crowd of prisoners and guards started walking straight like they were walking towards me. And then they started doing the Thriller. I'm sorry. The more they keep walking, the more blood they get on themselves. John started to turn into a snake in a weird way. His eyes turned reptilian, his skin turned scaly, and his tongue was in the form of a snake's tongue. Then the episode finally ended. Okay. I went backwards and kept rewinding the opening credits to believe how stupid I was to believe this was nice episode. That was English. It wasn't long until something caught my eye. I looked closely at the bottom of the word because... And I paused to see that the episode was actually called The Beatles Cartoon Because of John. They're dead. It's not even the right there. Okay. I was about to take the tape out until the VCR went on fire. It set itself on fire. Okay. All right. It burned like a bomb and then exploded. I immediately got my mom and a fire extinguisher. We put out the fire to discover that the VCR was still okay because we put in more VCR tapes and they worked. But the only thing that was destroyed in the fire was the tape. And it was the tape that started the fire. Okay. My mom and I went to the collector's shop and brought the tape back. The counter worker for the Beatles section said, "What happened to the tape?" "It was set on fire when the tape ended," I said. He took the tape and threw it away. Wow, okay. I don't see why you couldn't have just done that at home, but alright, sure. The next day, I was in the car with my mom to take something back that my dad forgot to take to work when we saw police surrounding a house, and 6 men were being retrieved out of the house. My mom was told by an officer that 6 men were arrested for drug possession and grave robbing. Why? Okay. It wasn't long until stuff came out of the house, and that stuff was like the things the people use for recordings for cartoons. They even found drawings of what they said is a morbid cartoon. It involved the Beatles. The police were informed that they sold the tape to a collector's shop. I told the police I got the tape and they showed me the drawings to see if I was right. I got all of them right. Okay. After telling them about the tape, they gave me an award of $200. Okay. For God's sake. Okay. Christ alive. And then everyone clapped. All right. They gave me an award of $200. I was glad that I got the money, but the sight of seeing the tape scared half to... But but the sight of seeing the tape scared half to death. For 4 days, I had nightmares, and when the nightmares stopped, a tape appeared on my front porch and it said, "You shouldn't have watched that," but I threw it away in the trash and never saw that thing again. Holy crap. All right. But I wonder why the tape said that. All I could say is that goodbye and see you later. Wait, what? What the heck was that? Oh, Christ alive. That's so dumb. How is this basically Squidward's suicide but worse? What the heck? There's a comment here. I want to party with the grave-robbing, drug-possessing evil cartoonists. They sound awesome and epic. Oh, good lord. You know what, commenter? So do I. Yes, Toast Logic. We'll go party with the grave-robbing, drug-possessing evil cartoonists. What the heck was that? I need to put a content warning on this when I upload it to YouTube. What the crap? What was that? What actually was that? Oh, it was garbage, all right, but jeepers creepers, that was terrible. And that was my first time reading it, too. Good God. Oh, God, hang on. I need to update my stream info real quick. Yeah. I'll just put big content warning in parenthesis for now and won't elaborate. That'll work. No, it won't, but, you know. Cheapers. Okay. do now, just for my own amusement. Wait, no, that's gonna mess with things. Let's go on r/no sleep and I'll read the first 5 things I find. We've already gone all in on this. I've already read things that are probably going to get me banned, but whatever. Let's go. Let's see. There we go. No sleep. Okay. Now I'm going to read the first 5 that I find. Okay, so this first one is, there's been a key in my neighbor's door for 2 weeks. Okay. I remember the first time I saw it. I had been walking my dog down the street, minding my own business, when something caught my eye on the other side of my next-door neighbor Mr. Carlson's lawn. After standing there for a moment, unable to put my finger on it, I eventually noticed a key, just hanging there in the doorknob in his front door. Not thinking about it too much, I went on with my walk and immediately forgot about it. But then the next day, I saw it again, as I did the next day after that, and the next day after that. Eventually, after a week had passed, I started to get worried. See, the thing is, I would have maybe written off the key as a simple mistake before going on a trip, but Mr. Carlson was quite old and frail, and had stopped leaving his house a long time ago, depending on caretakers for groceries and basic home goods. Which brought me to my next conclusion. ... That it must have been one of his caretakers. But then I remembered that they stopped by his house every few days, and surely would have noticed the key. Finally, after 2 weeks of indecision, I worked up the courage to walk over to Mr. Carlson's door, place my hand on the doorknob, the key still hanging from it, and turn the knob. As I turned it, I couldn't help but hear a faint echo, like the sound of a couple... Wait, sorry. I couldn't help but hear a faint echo, like the sound of a couple people shouting from 100 yards away. I stopped and looked around. Nothing. I turned back to the door, ... and opened it. Fearing the worst, I braced myself, closing my eyes. Upon opening them, I saw an empty foyer and let out a sigh of relief. Wow, I completely botched that. Let me try again. And let out a sigh of relief. But what I didn't know, ... was that the worst, quote, thing that I feared was nowhere near what I'd soon discover. Mr. Carlson, I called out before shutting the door behind me. Click. Suddenly the lights went out and I saw ... them ... Mr. Carlson and Brenda, our neighborhood post office workers, sitting on the staircase together, a look of horror in their eyes. Mr. Carlson? What a relief. And Brenda? I haven't seen her in a week, I thought to myself, remembering the past week's strange lack of mail that everyone in the neighborhood had been talking about. Looking back on it, I should have put 2 and 2 together, but what possibly could the disappearance of our mail person and a key in my neighbor's door have in common? I was about to find out. Brenda? What are you doing in Mr. Carlson's house? She simply replied, Key. Oh, it's yours? I asked, letting out a sigh of relief after spending 2 weeks running through every possible reason for it being left in the door. But before I could bask in the moment, she interrupted me. It's not mine. Or his. She said before turning to Mr. Carlson, who looked exhausted. It belongs to him, the old man said. Him? I asked, confused by where he was going with it. The man who visits us, Brenda said. Visits you? What do you mean? Just wait. He'll be back, especially now that you're here, Mr. Carlson said. He's right. I entered just like you did after dropping off the mail and wondering if something was the matter, finding Mr. Carlson here and that I was trapped inside. Within a few minutes, the man arrived, Brenda explained. Wait, what are you trying to tell me? That you're trapped here, the old man said. Trapped? I laughed. Yeah, okay. Is this some sort of Halloween prank? What, with the lights off and everything? That's when I casually walked back over to the door and tried to open it. Click. But it didn't budge. I stood there for a moment with my back to Brenda and Mr. Carlson, maybe wondering if maybe there was some truth to what they were saying. And that's when I heard ... him. See? Sorry, I couldn't resist doing the hymn from the hymn from Powerpuff Girls. I'm sorry. See? A hoarse, disturbing voice called out from behind me. They're right. You're trapped. Chills ran down my spine as I realized the voice could be coming from Brenda or Mr. Carlson. I couldn't bear to turn around, so I simply called back to the voice. Who are you? I'm the keeper of the keys to your worst nightmares. I turned around to find a man standing there in the darkness, his eyes glowing and keychains dangling from every inch of his body. Let us out! I screamed at him, pretending to be courageous, but terrified by the mere sight of such a thing. He simply replied, Certainly, before looking at his body and removing a particular keychain with one key on it. Yes, this one's for you, he said as he handed it to me. This will open the front door from the inside. Go ahead and leave. Go ahead. Leave. I looked at the key, then back at the door, then back at the monster, then back to me. I'm really sorry, I was going into an Old Spice commercial there. Alright, let's see. I looked at the key, then back to the door, back at the door, and then back at the monster, and the frick. I looked at the key, then back at the door, back at the monster, and smiled. You idiot. Why would you ever give it to me? I'll be back with the police, and you better not be here. Then I walked over to the front door, and inserted the key. Don't do it, Brenda cried out. He's tricking you, Mr. Carlson added, but I was too compelled by my plan to listen to them and proceeded to turn the doorknob. Click. It opened. See? I said as I turned back to Brenda and Mr. Carlson with a smug look on my face. They simply shook their heads in disappointment. I turned back and opened the door, stepped outside, and shut it behind me. ... to find myself in a bedroom. My childhood bedroom, to be exact. What the... I thought to myself as once again chills ran down my spine. Feeling unsettled by being in there, I opened the door and entered the second-story hallway, where I heard the sound of someone being strangled in a nearby bedroom. Normally, I would have been shocked to hear such a sound, but this was one I had heard before. This... was a memory. A memory that I was reliving in real life, now as an adult. A tear rolled down my cheek as I knew exactly what was happening in the other room. And despite my attempts to hold back, I couldn't stop myself from rushing into the bedroom and trying to stop him. But just as it had unfolded in real life, many years ago, by the time I opened the door, it was too late. My father was dead, strangled to death by my brothers for reasons I'd only later find out. Andrew, no! I cried out, but he had already crawled back into the corner of the room, simply staring at my father's lifeless body. That's when he looked up at me and charged at me like a ravenous zombie, managing to claw away at one of my arms before slam. I shut the door and ran downstairs, expecting to find my mother down there, just as I had found her when the event had originally happened. But all that I found was Brenda and Mr. Carlson staring up at me with wide eyes. "I'm sorry," Brenda said, seeing the expression on my face. "How did you know?" "Because it happened to us over and over. It did no matter which key he handed us." "No, it can't be," I cried out as I began to shut down, unable to believe what they had told me. But I should have. As I stood there, shaking in horror, I heard the sound of keys rattling, and I turned around to find the monster standing there again. "What do you want?" But he didn't answer. He simply looked down at his body and removed a particular keychain with one key on it. "Yes, this one's for you," he said as he handed it to me. I looked at the key, back at the door, and back at the monster, this time unable to smile. Okay. I knew another horror lay before me. Knew that the key would not help me escape the house, but for reasons I can't quite explain. Maybe I thought there was an inkling of a chance that the key would work. Or maybe it was a desire to see my father again. I took it anyway. I took it and opened the door, only to relive the same horrifying memory and return back to the staircase where Brenda and Mr. Carlson were standing. Once again, the monster returned. Once again, he handed me a key, and once again I disappeared through the door. This went on and on until I couldn't bear to take it anymore, and eventually gave up on the keys being of any help. When I finally declined the man's key, he simply replied, "Have it your way," before disappearing into the darkness. I turned to Brenda and Mr. Carlson, who went on to explain how they too had tried the keys and experienced nightmare after nightmare from their respective past. Then we all retired to the living room, where we slept on the couch, chair, and floor respectively, reasoning that we should stay in the same room. The next day, we huddled together, eventually coming to the conclusion that the house, its door, and the keys must be some sort of twisted test caused by the key in the home's front door and enforced by the monster that wore an armor of key rings. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my housemate wanted to. Wait, have I been behind the? I'm sorry, I've been behind the internet window that whole time, but you got to see that out the window of my apartment, I guess. Sorry. I had to do something about a guy with key rings. Guy who kept making me relive my worst nightmare, where I dreamed of electric sheep, saw a bunch of ones, zeros in beautiful harmony, and then suddenly there was a 2. Not really. No, sorry, but my housemate needed to ask me a question, so just had to take care of that real quick. So then, where was I? This is actually really long, so this might be the last story I read tonight. But pretty fitting, because we're almost at the end of Halloween. We've only got 7 minutes. Okay. Let me see. Armor of key rings. There we go. We tried everything, from scouring the home for exits, to attempting to make calls on its dead phones, to prying at its boarded windows from the inside out. But after a week had gone by without a single lead, we eventually gave up. That's when ... someone else arrived. No! We all screamed, our voices surely echoing outside, just as I had heard them, as Officer Howe turned the key to the front door and let himself in. By the time the door had closed behind him, it was too late. ... And 3... had become 4. Once again, the monster returned. This time offering Officer Howe a key, who took it and let himself out, experiencing a nightmare of his own, only to return from upstairs a short time later with a look of horror in his eyes. After we told him our stories, he too declined the monster's next key, and we once again huddled together, deciding that the answer must not lie in the house itself, but with the monster. But how do I stop it? I wondered. The next time he arrived, we forcibly tried to attack him as a group, but he simply waved his hand and froze us all in place, until he disappeared and back into the darkness. Following him for what felt like hours through a dark void until he reached a bedroom of his own. "What is this place?" I asked. "My own nightmare," he replied as he turned to a younger version of himself asleep in bed. Suddenly, I saw a window slowly pry open as a masked man broke in and moved towards the young man with a knife. Not knowing what else to do, I sprang to the young man's rescue, darting towards the intruder and grappling with him, waking the young man who watched on in horror, as the masked man was somehow impaled on his own knife and toppled out of the window. After catching my breath, I turned back to the young man who had a smile on his face. "Thank you," he said as he handed me a key. I stood there in silence, unable to believe what had happened, before turning back to the monster who I had assumed had been watching the whole time. ... But he was gone. ... But he was gone. I turned back to the young man who was still staring at me, then stumbled backwards out of his room, and back into the darkness where I turned around and walked back in the direction I had come from. When I finally emerged from the darkness holding the key, I found Brenda, Mr. Carlson, and Officer Howe all standing there in the foyer, a look of shock on their faces, having clearly expected that I would never return. I didn't say anything. I simply walked over to the home's front door, inserted the key, and opened it. Suddenly, a ray of sunshine burst into the home. I took a step outside and stood there for a moment until my eyes eventually adjusted to the daylight, and I had found myself outside of Mr. Carlson's home. The door still open, I looked back inside the home and saw Brenda, Mr. Carlson, and Officer Howe standing there in disbelief. I signaled for them to join me. Brenda and Officer Howe followed with big smiles on their faces, overjoyed to escape the horrors that in the home. But Mr. Carlson, he simply stayed behind. "Mr. Carlson, what are you waiting for?" But he didn't reply. He simply took a seat on the staircase. "Do me a favor. When you shut the door, leave the key inside the doorknob," the old man said. "But why?" I asked, unable to understand why he would choose to stay inside the place. "So I can see my son again," he explained. I then closed the door of the house and looked down at its now keyless doorknob before reaching into my pocket for the key that the young man had given me. Officer Howe ran over to stop me, but it was too late. I had already placed the key in the doorknob and locked the door. He gave me a look of horror. As I turned to see my wife pulling into the driveway next door, I looked over at her, and after spending what felt like weeks inside Mr. Carlson's home, expected her to be shocked to see me. But my wife simply waved hello, as if I never left. "Don't forget to walk the dog," she called out casually before turning off the car and walking away into our home next door. As Brenda and Officer Howe looked over at me, still shocked by what they had just experienced. Huh. That actually wasn't a half bad story. Not gonna lie. I mean, still kind of campy and weird in places, but I think that's just the nature of the beast when you're reading terrible and or weird stories on the internet. But yeah, that was quite the adventure we went on, isn't it, folks? And with 1 minute left to spare, I want to end this while we still have a little bit of Halloween left. So, this has been Byte the Robot. Thank you for joining me on this spooky Halloween. And I'll see you next time. Maybe with more GB4, maybe with chess. Who knows? Only I know. Sleep tight.